If you've been deer hunting even a couple of times, you've probably realized that a deer's secret weapon for defending off predators and avoiding hunters is its nose. We recently did a podcast with Kip Adams of the National Deer Association, one of the most respected whitetail biologists in the country, and talked about 3 ways to win the war with a deer's nose. You may not be able to beat a deer's nose in every situation, but what are some of the best ways to work around it and kill more bucks? Let's get into the video. So if you had to kind of summarize everything that we talked about and you had to put it into 2 or 3 tips, what would your top 2 or 3 tips be for beating a deer's sense of smell?
I think that first it's just to acknowledge that is their primary scent that we need to beat. We cannot move and beat their eyes. We can be quiet and beat their ears. The one thing that we need to beat. So knowing that, I think the tips I put together is one is absolutely pay attention to the wind. I do not deer hunt a single day of the year where I'm not paying attention to the wind or picking where I'm going based on what the wind is doing. So that is, I think, by far the biggest. And if hunters, new hunters, experienced hunters, and everybody in between, if they do that every day, they will be more successful over the totality of the season. So pay attention to the wind for sure. 2, use whatever scent control, products you want that could help make you feel more confident, but don't take away from the hunt by making it too regimented. And I know people who are professional hunters that swear by, a very regimented regime, and they are highly successful. And I know professional hunters who are highly successful that do almost none of that. So I don't think it is required, but I think that there are some advantages to using those, and particularly if it makes you feel a little more confident, there's something to be said for that. So, and the third thing would be, hey, the next step in this process would be paying a little more attention to thermals and figuring out how you can use those to your advantage. So that's kind of tips A and B. And then, the advanced tip, once you feel you're ready for it or once you want to try something new.
Explain thermals in layman's term and maybe their importance to a whitetail deer hunter in the Midwest or the East. What would you say to them?
I think thermals are very important. And thermals today are kind of like where the wind was 5 to 10 years ago, where people were, okay, I understand what's going on with the wind and I need to use this to my advantage. That's kind of where we are with thermals now. And in general, I think about, you'll see hawks out, soaring in the sky, and watching them soar, and either go up or down without flapping their wings. It look like they're riding the wind. Those are thermals. And in general, in the morning, when the ground heats up, there is a movement of air from that up higher. And at night, it tends to settle and go the other way. That's why in general they say, hunt high in the morning and low at night, because thermals rise during the day as the ground temperature heats up from the sun. And at night, as it cools, then the thermals go from high to low. All of those thermals are carrying your scent with them. So think about if you have ever been in a hilly area, maybe there's a little draw that comes like down through the woods, and it's in the evening and you're riding along in the summer and it's nice and warm, and you get to an area and all of a sudden you feel a cool spot. That is a thermal that's dropping, and all of that scent is right down through there. That is something that we can very easily feel. That is going on around us everywhere. And deer are picking up on this because our scent is in all of those thermals. So just as that hawk can ride that thermal and soar up or down, our scent is within that as well. And our scent rises with them and drops with them. And deer pick this up. So understanding the wind is the first step in helping beat the deer's nose. Thermals are like the advanced part of that, where even if the wind is in your favor, if the thermal is taking your scent somewhere else, then that can still alert deer to your presence. A perfect example, a really good friend of mine, really, really accomplished bow hunter, had a stand set up on the side of this hill that he thought would be dynamite. And it was perfect for a morning stand. He would get there, and the first few times, deer were blowing or catching his scent, and he was blowing them out. He thought, what in the world is going on? It's in the morning. Scent is rising, and he was above where these deer were coming from. So his scent should be going up and out. So he ended up taking smoke bombs. On the off season, I'm going to take a little, remember the little smoke bombs, you light them and you can see where the smoke goes. They work a lot better than a windicator or milkweed because you can see it a lot farther. Well, what he found was in the morning when he would get there at daylight or just after daylight, even though the thermals are rising in the morning, this hillside was such that it took the ground there longer to heat up than he had expected. So it took a couple, 3 hours after daylight. Even though you think of thermals rising in the morning, those thermals continued to fall until about 9 a.m. Then they would rise. So what was happening is he was getting busted between daylight and 9 a.m. from deer below him because the thermals were still dropping. Even though the wind was in his favor, those thermals were taking his scent down. So what he did is he figured this out. He never went to that stand until after about 9 a.m. So what happened is deer below him, they're there in good cover. He would sneak around, get in his stand at 9 a.m. rather than before daylight. By then, the thermals are rising. His scent is going up. Deer never knew he was there. And then he started killing some really nice deer from that stand. It was all about the thermals. So even though the wind was in his favor, the terrain there changed the way the thermals were. And so they were taking his scent right to him. So hunters who are just a casual hunter, they're going to be like, I don't care about this at all. That's, I don't need to understand that. And it's not difficult. It just takes a little more ground truthing, to realize what is really going on here. So if you're a casual hunter in general, think about this: hunt higher in the morning, hunt lower at night, relative to a hillside or something. And most of the thermals will work in your favor. If you're really into this and you're an avid deer hunter, you can figure this out on a stand by stand basis and be able to figure out, like my buddy did, the best time to get to that spot to make sure those thermals are working in your favor. And the thing is, if you have the right wind and you have figured out how those thermals are, that is almost a dynamite setup from deer, like almost a foolproof setup, relative to, because they are so in tune to wind, thermals, and all of that, that they use that to their advantage. So if you can find a spot that literally beats that, and there's, those spots aren't everywhere, but like my buddy, he found one like that. It was an unbelievably productive stand because the deer were less pressured there. They thought everything was in their favor. The thermals allowed my buddy to have an advantage over that and kill some really nice bucks there because of it.
If you could take away one deer sense forever to help you increase the amount that you're going to kill over your lifetime, I think I know what it is, but what would that sense be?
It certainly would be the nose. It would allow me to get a lot closer to more deer if they didn't have that sense of smell. However, that'd be pretty short-sighted of me because I love to hunt deer and eat deer, and I hope I get to do that for a long time. And if we took that sense away, we wouldn't have anywhere near the numbers of deer we have in a very short time. So certainly that's what they use the best. And from a hunting end, that would help us the most if they couldn't do it. But the flip side of that is I'm pretty glad that is as advanced as it is in deer for the challenge for us, but also then just to ensure that, that deer are great survivors. And that is why they have done, they're the oldest deer species we have. They are way older if you look at, across time than moose, elk, everything else. And one of the big reasons for that is that sense of smell. So I hope they have that for several more million years as well.